Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday YouTube channel. I am your host, Ryan Hartley. This channel is for heart-centered leaders just like you. I hope our time spent together helps you leave a heartprint where those around you are left better than yesterday. These interview sessions are sponsored by our great friends at Elevate Online Marketing. Welcome back to episode 185, part 2, with John Gray, the author of one of the most well-known and trusted relationship books of all time, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. If you haven't listened to part 1, be sure to go back and listen. Here on part 2, we're going to continue our conversation where we left off, and I continue to invite you to remain open-hearted, open-minded, and embrace all of John's wisdom, all that he shares from his heart to yours. Maybe there'll be something in this episode that will capture your imagination and inspire something within you today. Maybe there won't, and that's equally okay too. If you love the episode, please do share it with someone who you know will enjoy it too. Here we go, episode 185, part 2. It's fascinating, I think the overriding thing, that the one word I would get from your book that it's enabled in us is grace. I think being able just to understand that, even though that concept of men are from Mars, women are from Venus, it's just like a reminder to go, we think different, we feel different, we act different, we have instincts that are different. And because, when you talk about those examples of shark teeth, well, I'm a sensitive human being. I take those things very personally. And it's just like, oh, what have I done? And when we come back around to that concept of if she's trying to fix something, the implication of that is something is broken.
Yeah, you.
Yeah. Right.
And you've disappointed me, and I'm hurt by what you do. You hit it right on the nail, is that we take things personally. And I actually had a little insight as we're talking, and that was when you just said that thing about taking things personally. Men were different even 70 years ago. We did not take things so personally. The more aware you are of your feelings inside, the more you take things personally. Now, that's the good side of it, is that we have a capacity to self-reflect more about what we feel. But the problem is, what we feel is often overreaction or incorrect reaction. And the reason for that, because you were just explaining, if I just understood that she naturally has these ups and downs, I wouldn't take it so personally. Same thing, if women would just understand that men are in and out, and not to worry when he pulls away, is that's what he needs, and he comes back to it. And to understand these differences, more knowledge allows us to not take things personally. So knowledge can do it. And I think that's why my books have helped so many people. But at another level, which is the insight I had while you were talking, was on another level, it's fresh. So let me see if I can grab it. But it's, we didn't used to be so sensitive because we didn't have such self-awareness. But self-awareness, this new thing that we have, allows women to become aware of their male side and allows men to become aware of their female side. But what we have to know is, hormonally, when you go a little bit too far on your male side for a woman, it's an addiction. And when men go a little too far on their female side, it's an addiction, and it's hard to get back. And nobody's really acknowledged that, although it's right in front of our face if we define what is our female side. Our female side is doing what we like to do. See, whenever you're doing what you like to do, you're experiencing love and enjoyment and pleasure and fun. This is all estrogen stimulator. That's what causes estrogen to go up. When you like to have sex, you as a man, your estrogen level goes higher and higher. And when it goes too high, then you ejaculate and it's all over. But that's doing what you like, which was the 60s for men, growing your hair out, dressing. We're just going to our female side. But once you get there, it's addictive, because every addiction is your female side. You're going to do what you like to do, even if it's not good for you. Yeah. See, doing what you like to do, nothing wrong with that as long as it's good for you. If I just, and feelings, just because I feel I like ice cream doesn't mean I can just keep eating it all day. You have to be responsible. Is this working for me as well? That's your male side. You're solving problems. This is creating a problem. This is how you solve this problem. I got fat belly. What do? I stop eating ice cream, regardless of how I feel. We become this, whatever I feel, do it. That's more of our female side. And men get addicted over there, depending on something outside yourself for your happiness that's not productive in your life is an addiction. Now, for women, their addiction, that they're basically too far on their male side. They go over their male side and say can't turn off their brain from seeing problems and then solving problems. And that's called overwhelm. Women today will say, I feel so overwhelmed. There's so much I have to do. Kind of like you wish your husband would feel that way about you. So that busyness of I have to do, it's an imbalance when you're going over there. And there's a tipping point. Like if you're walking on a tightrope, if you go a little bit over the other side, no problem. You can come back to the other side. That's what we want to be, is this nice back and forth of our male and female side. But when you go over too far, let's say a woman goes too far to her male side, she falls down. Now she can't find her female side again. And what she needs is a man who has learned how to help her find her female side. And we can do that. We can rescue her from herself. And every man wants to rescue a woman, make her happier. I was just counseling a woman who's her son's coach. Okay, she had no attraction to this man at all, but he's the tennis coach. And so her son was in a competition and he missed some balls or whatever, started crying. You know, he's just a 10, 12-year-old, something like that. He's crying and crying, and the mother's trying to help him. He's just making it worse. And he says, Carol, let me talk to him. Took him away from the sympathetic, empathetic mother who was just bringing out more emotion. And he came back, listen, you can win this game. Just suck it up. You can do it. No need to worry. I'm right behind you. Get it done. Get out there and just forget it. Just do the shot. And the boy stops crying, goes out and wins the game. And the mother's now in love with him. Who is this guy? Magic man, you know, just like he was enough on his male side to talk to a little boy the way a boy needed to be talked to. But today we have mainly women raising, you know, boys, and they get over feminized. And it's even more over feminized when the mother is single, because when a mother is single, she's not depending on a man for anything. So the boy feels, you know, I have to do it for mom, but you can't. You see, he's just a little boy. So there's a wall where you just give up. So many men just have real difficulty when they're with a woman and she's not suddenly happy about everything. He gets bent out of shape instead of what you just pointed out, which is she's a woman. They're like the weather. You can't control the weather. You can just control yourself at that time. Put on an umbrella, put on a jacket, take off your shirt if it's too hot. You know, you can control yourself. You can't control her. But what you can do is not make it worse, and you can make it easier for her to come back into that wave. And in Men Are From Mars, I talk about this wave. And the wave is when she's up, and then suddenly now she's upset about something. We men want to bring her back up, pull her back up, but that's not the way a wave works. A wave has to hit bottom, and then it will automatically come up. If you just let her talk a bit, hit bottom, explore what's negative, she'll immediately shift into what's positive. Our brain is designed that way. We have these two parts of our prefrontal cortex. If we can talk about what's not working, then we can start to see what is working. But you can't talk to your partner about them not working because then he gets defensive. Then she gets stuck on her left side and we have escalation of problems.
Hey my friends, thank you for listening to the interview sessions here on YouTube. Did you know that back in 2018, this was the original format for our interview sessions? It wasn't until after a couple of months when someone said, I'd love to listen to these conversations on my commute, did it become a podcast. And since then, we have been listened to by people in over 130 countries around the world. If you are enjoying this podcast, if you're enjoying this interview, I'd be really grateful if you'd head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. And once you've done that, be sure to take a screenshot, tag us in at Always Better Than Yesterday UK, and I will send you a 20% discount to our merchandise store as a thank you from me to you. Here we go. Back to the interview session.
That's powerful. And you've really just touched on something which you obviously don't know, but my dad left when I was 6 months old, and stepdad separation at 12. So my mum was a single parent. She was incredible. She's my role model. She's the epitome of optimism, hard work, worked 3 jobs, looked after our kids, but I never really had a male role model. I'd never had some of this, healthiness play out before my eyes. So I've gone into the world with the greatest intentions to be a great husband, to be a great father, but I've never really had any role models, and I've had to kind of figure it out in my wife and I. We've obviously bruised each other along the way, but it's powerful, and I'm grateful for you and your work to put out things like this that can help 2 people who you may have never met to try and journey in this thing called love and relationships. So I just want to thank you for that, and just ask whether you have any particular advice, maybe for young men that maybe haven't had father role models, that are trying to do the best, trying to be good men, trying to be good husbands and fathers, but may not have had the role models and guides that they might have needed. What would your advice be to them?
Get a role model or read books by role models and sink yourself into that. And unfortunately, be aware that almost every, I won't say every, but many, many books on relationships are skewed towards everything is the way women think, because the writers of these books are therapists. And 90% of the people who come to therapists are women. So when you're hearing women talk all day about men, they didn't do this, they didn't do this, all we can say is look at it from her point of view. And they're not necessarily looking at it from his point of view. And then there's some men who do talk about his point of view, but they're not happily married. Okay. So there's a dance there. A real good book I'd recommend for young men besides my books is Why Men Are the Way They Are by Warren Farrell. He's written a lot of good books on that. There's other writers that have good relationships who talk about men and what men need, because we just don't think, what do we need as men and what's appropriate for us? Years back, I was watching a YouTube video of a university professor saying, oh, poor men, they never got to cry, and they have to be tough. They have to be like an oak tree, and when the wind blows, you're not shaken by it. We put such a burden on men. This is the opposite of what masculinity is. We give me that storm, I'll stand up against it, kind of a thing. And to do activities where you have coaches and you have men only, that's a really important thing too. And part of what my books do is give men permission to be men, like having your cave time, for example. Biologically, we have to have that time. One of the most wonderful moments, I look back to my childhood. My dad didn't do it, but my friend's dad had a ranch as well. And he would take us fishing, sitting in a boat fishing and not talking. It was like some kind of spiritual experience for me. It still sticks with me, is the whole power of learning how to, for example, be quiet and meditate, putting a sign on your mirror, which says, don't speak whenever you're in a relationship with a woman, ask questions. It's ingrained in us to get upset about things. And if you are upset, don't let anybody know. See, this is the opposite of psychology. What you do is you say, are you upset with me? No, I'm not upset with you. Maybe you are a little bit, but don't talk about it. Because if you talk and you're upset, it just becomes more and more upset. There's a time and a place to process your emotions, but it's not when you're upset with your partner. You take time to raise your testosterone, and that can be doing anything. So having activities that you're good at, that are challenging, that are hobbies, competitive hobbies, all these things away from women will always strengthen masculinity. But there's a dance today. When you do things that women don't understand, they feel hurt. And then you don't ever want to hurt a woman. So you think something's wrong with you. The first time I remember I applied the cave in my marriage to Bonnie is the first year we were having her aunt was deaf and had Parkinson's and needed to move out of LA and move up to Northern California with us. So we went down there and spent 7 days just doing all of that. It's a big job. We're together the whole time. So when we get back, it's kind of like, we're back. We did it. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go play tennis. She says, or go to a movie with my buddy Clifford. And she says, you're going to go now? I said, yeah. And she says, but we haven't had any time together. Unfortunately, I understand messaging is often, we say things, but there's another meaning. And so I said to her, honey, listen, we spent all this time together. I just need to have some time to be with my guy friends. And I promise you, it's what I need. I love you, but I'll come back tomorrow and we'll create quality time. That's what you're asking, is you want quality time with me, and I can't give it right now. She didn't understand any of that. She was hurt by that, but I had to have the forbearance and say, I know that's not what you want, but you'll see tomorrow I can give you what you want. I'm going to take you out to dinner. And the next day she she said nothing to imply that we're going out to dinner. She was testing me because that's what women go into. They go, well, I don't trust. And so I basically planned a nice dinner and got a babysitter for I had 2 little stepchildren at that point. And she was just blown away. She was surprised. She thought that was just an excuse. That was just baloney. And gradually she started to understand my cave time meant that I would pull away, come back with more. And that's a training that women need to get from a man. But I remember I needed to have conviction that it's okay for me to have my male side to do that. Because if a woman doesn't understand something you're doing, she'll feel hurt by it, and then you'll adjust your behavior. And what men don't know is then you become sort of hypersensitive. And there was so anyway, reading books, doing things with males, taking classes that are taught by males with men. I know lots of guys will go out on these trips together and whatever. That's also a great thing to do. It's just hanging out with guys is a big, big thing. And recognizing every time you're upset, you don't have to talk about your feelings. This is this is our world today. Everybody should talk about their feelings. Women should talk about their feelings. That's estrogen stimulating. Men should do things so they rebuild their testosterone, and those feelings are just dissipate. They're not there. They're just hormonal reactions. And we have sort of the holy grail is to talk about how you feel. It's not the holy grail. It's basically for men, it's learning how to analyze your feelings is another whole topic. But whenever you analyze something, you stand objective to it. You're not feeling it necessarily. You're analyzing what you were feeling as what's wrong. Why am I thinking? What am I thinking that's causing that feeling, so I can change my thinking and not have that feeling? A man should ideally never react. This is called sucking it up. Never react when something's bothering you, upsetting you, hurting you inside. Never react, which means don't take action based upon that negativity. You take action based upon having a heart open, doing what works, doing what practically will make a difference, as opposed to something, yelling at somebody isn't going to do anything unless you're monkeys, and threatening them. So you learn what works and what doesn't work, and that separates us from animals. And then as animals, we also have to recognize we have these certain hardware hormones. And then when men talk about emotions, they just become more emotional. And as soon as you start having these emotions, women are threatened and they want to know, what are you thinking? Are you going to kill me? Even though they're not thinking that, but they want to find their safety, and your safety comes through a calm presence and asking, well, I'm really thinking about what you're saying and I want to understand it better. Tell me more. So that's your comeback. You've got, she's hit the ball to you. You've got to hit it back, putting her back on the female side, rather than you going to your female side and exploring whatever's going on inside of you. Even if you're telling her just what you think, too soon. You should only be feeling open-hearted when you talk to her. Otherwise, she'll feel threatened. And men don't know that. Men don't know that when you're expressing anger, you're actually going to your female side. That's an emotion. And it means if it's anger, it's low testosterone. If it's positive emotion, then it's high testosterone and high estrogen. That's what you want. We want to have both our male and female sides in harmony. But if you have negativity inside, you have to go to the male side, hang out with the male side. And that could be a hobby, something you're good at, something you're capable at, or something you're learning to be better at. And you have a mentor who's better at it than you. That's a real key thing. And then you have coaching. Coaches are great. And it's different from therapy, but going to a coach is analyzing a problem, making a commitment to solve it, being accountable, all the things that create masculinity. So that's another aspect, that you're being seen in a non-judgmental way, but in a way that is somebody seeing that you didn't do what you said you did. Because ultimately, another thing for male, this book here, I just want to mention, it's all about Beyond Mars and Venus. The follow-up to Men Are From Mars is all about the hormones of male and female, and what you can do as men to increase those hormones in you, what a woman can do on her own. But a big part of for women is to recognize on her own is to create a relationship where she can ask for help and get it. And the way that looks is, you come home, you don't talk about your day. And then women will complain, he doesn't talk about my day. What is she saying? You're not listening to me talk about my day. Because on their planet, you can't just go up to a girlfriend and say, I want to tell you about my day. You first have to it's etiquette. You first have to say, oh, tell me about your kids. Oh, tell me about your day. Tell me about your work. And she listens for 5 or 10 minutes. Then she feels, oh, now I can talk about my day, which is what she wanted to start with. Okay. Mm-hmm. She wanted to talk about her day. It's kind of like pay in advance, and then she gets to talk about her day. Whereas, so she's eager to hear what's going on in your day, but really subconsciously, she needs you to hear what's going on in her day. Mm-hmm. So there is a technique. I'll just say another technique is called the lunch menu. She'll say, what's going on in your life? You want to give her some safety that she can now talk about her day. You don't want to just cut her off and say nothing. You say, oh, I went to work, I saw so-and-so, and just a few little things that happened during the day. Not any feelings, not any emotion, not any bad mood. She needs to feel that you're like happy and capable on your own. And then she doesn't feel the mothering instinct to nurture you. Then she feels safe to come back and be nurtured by you, which is by providing the safety for her to talk about her day, your interest in that, as gradually she begins to open up. And it's ideal if she can be exposed to these ideas and help her how to actually communicate to a man in a way where he will listen to you. And that's another, I know our time's running out, but I'll just go a little bit more with it. And that is, if my wife says, oh, the copier didn't work today, and I got all the messages and nobody else was doing it, I had to do it myself. So those are some frustrations of the day, right? And I'm like thinking in my head, oh, well, so what if the copier didn't work? There's one on the other floor. What's the big deal? And then she's complaining, I have to do everything. And my mind's going to go, well, no, you don't have to do everything. I don't do everything if I don't want to do. So he's constantly not relating to her experience, but all she has to do when she's talking is put emotion in it. Mm. See, men want women's emotions. I remember I married Bonnie. I told her, I said, honey, I didn't realize I live in a black and white world until I fell in love with you. And now it's full blown color. That's the emotion that that's estrogen. Women have all this estrogen and it's emotion. So if you just put a little emotion into whatever you say, men are like, what else? What else? We need to connect with emotion. Just like we always say in sex, did you have an orgasm? It's kind of like, did you feel something? We want to get into you. We want to feel that female part of you. Mm-hmm. So it's a learning, a new skill. This is not something automatic. If, I've seen primitive women in different cultures, and, I was in Bali and I saw all the women walking down to the stream, washing clothes together. They're all taking care of their kids, That's a very estrogen stimulating thing. They say, oh, this and that, and she did this. They're telling secrets and whatever. Nobody's ever saying I'm frustrated or so disappointed or I feel so hurt. They're not revealing emotion. It's just women relate to all those experiences because they have the same emotions, so they don't have to articulate the emotion. Mm. So women will hear other women and they'll get what they need on an emotional level, but then they feel from their own life experience, half the world will never relate to me. Mm. As opposed to feeling everybody can relate to me. And the way that's through is reveal your emotion, show it look like, instead of her saying, oh, the copier didn't work, she could say, I was so frustrated because I kept trying to make the copier work. Well, I can relate to being frustrated. Every man has frustrations. Even my football team lost. Okay, I'm frustrated about that. We have emotion. So, oh, I was so frustrated because I was doing this and this. And he said, oh, it should have been on the second floor. Then you just said, oh, I know that, but I just wanted to share how I felt. See, you don't need solution, but you do need to reveal emotion. Or you could say, oh, I'm so concerned. Everybody, I do so much and nobody even acknowledges me. And so I feel so disappointed about that. And then he'll connect with the feeling of disappointment or the feeling of embarrassment. This is the most powerful emotion that you can reveal with your husband to get his full attention. You say, oh, then I said this to everybody. And oh my God, I regretted it. I was so embarrassed. I said this and this and this. God will go, oh, honey, I love you. I care about you, Yeah. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't feel embarrassed. Okay. There's something I say to, like Ryan, you heard my talk on longevity. For everybody who wasn't there, I gave a talk on the iron penis. I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
But it was, I shouldn't have gone so far about sex. It was too much. Sometimes I go too far on things. I feel embarrassed. That's how I self-correct. After that talk, I got a bunch of texts from Japan. They actually have a statue and they call it the iron penis.
That's fantastic. I am super conscious of your time. I could talk to you. We barely scratched the surface of the 20 wonderful books that you can see over John's shoulders in the background. I do want to just ask you one more question and acknowledge that I love the fact that your new book talks about moving from role mate to soulmate. I would have loved to have taken a little bit more about that. But
real quickly, I did talk about, I just didn't put the label on. Role mate is when I talked about men have a role and women have a role. And if I pick someone based upon their ability to do that role, so there's really not going to be much complaining or disappointment or trying to change the partner. A soulmate is someone who doesn't just provide for our survival and security, family, the basic needs. It's a higher need. This is Maslow talked about the hierarchy of needs. A soulmate is a partner who can potentially fulfill a higher need for emotional fulfillment. That's why people today want to experience lasting love, lasting passion, attraction, making love, great sex. This is like our dream today for many people. Those are the people my message is appropriate for. That's the soulmate, because it's through our emotional safety and fulfillment that we can connect with our souls. Just paying the bills doesn't necessarily bring you feeling your soul, but actually who we are gets nourished at the depth of it. So a woman's able to bring forth both her male side and her female side, and a man's able to bring out both his female side and his male side. When you have that balance, you're connecting more with your soul. The soul, and the way I describe it, is it incarnates into this body, into this hardware. And its major lessons is how to integrate into your masculinity if you're a man, and then incorporate your femininity. And for women, it's how to, the soul is both male and female, but it picks a female body. So her biggest challenge is, how can I be feminine while I also integrate my masculinity? How can I have both? Because the soul is both. The hardware is primarily one. So a soulmate, it provides the emotional fulfillment so that we can be all that we can be. And that's where it's all new lessons, how to even do that. You know, the emotional intelligence of being able to communicate your emotions and feelings in a way that's productive, instead of a way that blames or criticizes or puts down your partner.
And how do we account for those that might associate with the opposite gender? You know, a woman that might, you know, a lot of the women in the spiritual circle, they'll say, I'm in my masculine, I'm in my masculine. How do we account for them being in the opposite gender without needing a gender reassignment?
I articulate the question a little differently.
So many people that I speak to.
First of all, I don't believe in gender reassignment. So that's the confusing thing for me. Basically, what most people just don't know the logic of biological development in human beings. We've measured this out before we talk about trans or anything like that. If you look at a male, you pretty much from the age 2 to 13 to puberty, you're pretty much the same hormones as a little girl. So you're very malleable. You know, it's basically how you're treated, the circumstances that make you feel more drawn, more comfortable with males or more comfortable with females. And are you naturally more artistic? You're going to be more drawn to the girls. If you're more naturally more active oriented, you're going to be drawn to the boy side of you. We all come in the world different, but we do come in with a gender. But you don't even know your gender. You can't know your gender. You know, you think you know your gender. You can't biologically know your gender until you actually have a gender. And that particularly starts at puberty, where a boy's testosterone levels, which are just like a girl's, until puberty hits, it goes up 10 times. Suddenly it's like, and when his is 10 times higher and hers is now, she's starting to have her period, her estrogen levels become a dominant factor in her well-being. That's when you start to feel, I'm feminine and he's masculine. Anything before that is just some kind of conditioned response based upon society's suggestions. And it's very easy to be suggestible as a child because we're completely suggestible. We don't know who we are. And then at puberty, we still don't know who we are. We're beginning to know who we are as masculine and feminine. And then once we start knowing that, then we have a sense of who I really am, because we're not just our sex. We're also this person inside. That's your 20s to find out, to be self-sufficient within yourself. That is called self-reflection. Know thyself is when the prefrontal cortex begins to develop. And science shows us this prefrontal cortex is still developing to know who you are all the way to 28 years old. Now, not everybody gets there for sure, but the brain at least has the potential to self-reflect at 28 years old. That's what the science shows us is actual development. But the thought of even somebody knowing, am I masculine or feminine as before puberty, and even after puberty, there's still all your stumbling blocks at that point. All it takes is, I've been raped 3 times by men where I averted myself. Okay. I was once hitchhiking in Italy and 18 years old and got in a car with 4 guys who started raping me. And while the car was moving, I opened the car door and jumped out. They're all like going crazy. And we didn't know about gay at that time. We didn't know anything like that. But that was their arousal on me caused an intense arousal, which could be very addictive if it was encouraged, or actually maybe more had happened. Same sex causes different hormones than with the opposite sex. It's similar to the hormones a man gets when he has pornography. When you have pornography, it's fantasy. But when you do same sex, you're producing intensified testosterone. I mean, it goes way up. A gay man will often have how many? 8 to 20 guys in a night. That's what I hear. I live in San Francisco area, so I hear this stuff. That I don't know if it's every night, but it's just kind of, you're turned on, let's do it. That's called loveless sex. Now, putting that out of the context of gays, because I don't want to say anything negative about them. Whatever you wish to do, it's your gift. Come to me, I'll help you in my way. But men, heterosexual men, are having sex online, digital sex with a person they don't even know. This is massively dopamine, testosterone stimulating. It desensitizes your testosterone receptors, your dopamine receptors, so that a real woman can't turn you on. And this is what's happening. The more addicted you are to sex with a stranger, the less you're able to sustain an erection with somebody you love. What's going on in the world today. And the more women are turned on to having sex with men who don't know them, those women find men who actually love them for who they are boring. So this is all this, we have to realize that we were never intended to have computers with 64,000 naked women on there telling your subconscious brain that they all want to have sex with you. It's a surge of testosterone that not only can't be maintained in life, it's like you're flying around in a private jet and suddenly you have to ride in the worst seat in the economy. You just crash back down and you resent reality and you have negativity and you get fooled by it. It's all just chemicals in your brain. You overstimulate. What happens is receptor sites downregulate, they desensitize, and then normal life is boring, it's flat, it's disturbing. And so the only thing that gives you happiness is this fake false stimulation or loveless sex. Loveless sex is massively addictive and prevents you from actually having a sex drive with someone you love. And this is all biological. I know I couldn't in a short period of time explain all of the subtleties of that biological transformation, but we see it today happening where young guys can't sustain erections with their girlfriends, but they can go online right away and do this. I just counseled another man. He went on a date, hadn't been with a woman for a while. He got really excited right away on the date, made out in the car, and she started to rub him and there was no erection. Massively embarrassed. He went home, and then at home, he got an erection and masturbated. And it's just that if men should realize when you masturbate, even that is going to lower your testosterone over time. And this is something that's not known today. And this has always been sort of a discouragement against masturbation. All right. And this is because the wisdom of the ancient years. Now in America, they want to teach children how to masturbate. Pleasuring yourself is loving yourself. This is insanity. This is waking up sex hormones way before they should be woken up. And they should be woken up with polarity, not manual stimulation on yourself.
Even in the UK, there's daytime adverts for men for Viagra.
Say it again.
That even in the UK here on TV, there are daytime adverts for Viagra, which is almost like normalizing.
Oh, normalizing Viagra. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, supposedly, men over a large percent of men over 40 use Viagra.
Yeah.
This is your death sentence. If you can't make those hormones, you die. If you look at men still die earlier than women. And when a man dies, the insurance companies say it's generally about, at least his first heart attack is 2 to 3 years after he quits his working job. See, a working job produces testosterone like nothing else. Coming home and then making love with your wife raises it up higher, okay, making love. But, you heard in my talk, I should always mention this. I think it's just so revolutionary that they found that Japanese men, in the studies, is that, and these are men, if they ejaculate on Saturday night, if they go for 6 days without ejaculating, on the 7th day, they will produce 50% more testosterone when they make love to their wife. Now, if they have sex on Saturday night, it comes back down to baseline. They have sex on Tuesday, it will stay at baseline. Twice a week, you'll just stay at baseline the rest of your life, and it will just slowly go down, which is statistically everybody's testosterone, all the men in the world today, it didn't used to be this way, go down 1% every year. This is in all age categories, going down 1% every year. And 20 years ago, a 20-year-old started out around 20 with 20% more testosterone than a 20-year-old today. And I attribute this to the massive amount of masturbation that's going on. I'm 70 years old. I don't masturbate, and I don't even ejaculate when I have sex. I've learned how to do that. Multi-orgasmic man. And so my testosterone levels are 50% higher. This is a noble goal, stay vital, stay alive, stay young. And not that I have to look young or anything, but I like feeling, why not? Why get sick and have all these systems going down? Because for men, particularly, not taking testosterone, but making it. Making testosterone means you have self-confidence, you're selfless, you're caring, you're motivated. All your best qualities are being expressed when your testosterone is up, and even better qualities when you have heterosexual relationship where you're connecting with someone who's increasing your estrogen. See, that's the whole thing. That's the magnetic pull of heterosexuals. That's why they live longer than any other category. They live, you have single, you have gay women, gay men, you have single men, you have asexual couples. All those categories have more disease and more sickness than heterosexual married couples. They're the healthiest and loved people. And not all of them are happy, but they're healthier. So, and what we see today is all categories are people who are completely confused, and they're not happy, and they're stressed out. And the most stressed people are the women. That's measurable. You go to a workplace, you measure women's stress levels in the workplace. It's twice as high as a man's. And when a man comes home, the average is it will go back down, it will relax. And for women, when they go back home after a double stress day, it doubles again. So there's solutions to this without having to go back to role mate relationships. And you can have a role mate relationship, which is also a soulmate. Because I define a role mate as you have your basic traditional roles. But then soulmate is where you have emotional fulfillment. And for those who choose traditional roles, that's their choice. And we all have choice, no problem there. But we have to learn how to be emotionally fulfilled, whether we're in traditional roles or the modern roles. It's just the modern roles tend to not support women, particularly in coming back to their female side. The relationship side of her life needs to be with a man who can provide that kind of stability and groundedness and wisdom to help her feel safe, to depend on him for something that she doesn't even know she needs, which is intimacy, emotional fulfillment, by being able to talk about what's going on, by having you play role, do romantic dates and those kind of things, and be kind and generous and selfless and offer to help. And particularly today, which wasn't a role in the past, most men never saw their fathers doing housework, but to do part of the housework can also be a turn on to a woman. But over time, it just becomes a duty. The other two things are the key things, which are the good communication and the romance. But the novelty of I was just cleaning up the kitchen yesterday And my partner was like amazed and thrilled by it, because it's a novelty to see a successful man do housework. Okay. So there's a novelty there. That novelty will wear off, but the good communication and the romantic gestures, that's biology. That's me penetrating her, allowing her to be more feminine.
I love that. John, you've been incredibly gracious with your time. My final question, which I ask all of my guests here, is that I have a concept, a word called Heartprint. And Heartprint for me represents the legacy of our interactions. And because of your books, there is something that has been made possible in the lives of your readers that wouldn't have been there unless you had wrote those words on a page and shared your heart and your mind with the world. John, what do you believe your Heartprint will be?
You have to define it for me once again.
So a Heartprint for me is the legacy of our interactions. So for you,
Of our mistakes,
of our actions, of our work, of our.
I thought you said insurrections.
No.
Right now we have an insurrection as a capital. Okay, so I'm like, well, okay. I actually have a lot of insurrections in my life. I regret, but no.
The legacy of your interactions.
Oh, my legacy of interactions. So what would it be?
Yeah.
Well, for this part of my life, it's guiding people to find love in their lives. I'm really about helping people come back to their love as I'm moving on to the next stage. I think a major part of my legacy will be helping people make love. I think making love in our private, intimate moments is just as important as communication outside the bedroom. I've never counseled a couple who was actually making love and had great making loves. They just who was wanting a divorce, and they had great sex and were learning how to make love. And I can teach people things that men don't know and what women don't know about their own bodies, about how you can make love that makes you grow in love rather than sort of grow apart. And there's a whole art and science to that. And I explain all that. I touched into it in one of the talks you heard. Then beyond that is I have a unique form of meditation that I teach. People just are blown away by, and it's very, very simple. So one day I'll really be focusing a lot of my 80s, 90s. I'll be teaching those ideas for sure. It's such a blessing to be able to help people experience peacefulness instantly and find their higher self, and then let that come into their life more. But I have several legacies that I'll provide. Thanks for asking. I never said it that way before, but I never think about it. So thanks.
And I love that your daughter's getting involved in a lot of your work as well, or has been involved for some time now. That must be pretty touching.
It's very fulfilling. And I'll just let people know at marsvenus.com, she has lots and lots of blogs there and women-only classes that are just stellar. We just get huge results from them. So we have those services that are available. And she's the legacy of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. She teaches it better than I do. She doesn't yet. She's not as funny about it. Get down there. This is what you got to do. She's a little bit more this is what happens. And this is what happens when you don't do that. And she's very clear about it. She has a lovely relationship. And I think she'll help a lot. She's already helping lots of people in the world.
John, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
A real pleasure, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Thank you for making it to the end of the interview here on YouTube. I hope that our time spent together has left you a little bit better than before you push play. Before you go anywhere, please leave a comment down below, some of your key reflections, your key takeaways. I love hearing from you and what this conversation has inspired in you. Let me know what you're going to do as a result of this conversation. I will be back next Wednesday where I will share another inspiring guest. To make sure that you don't miss that, please do subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as soon as it goes live. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organization, please do visit alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com, and it will be my honor and privilege to help you in any way I can. Keep leading, my friends. I've been Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast here on YouTube. Always love.